Welcome to the webinar, Cambodia Business Briefing. I'm David Johnson, CEO of Delivering Age Communications, and I'm with
Bill Barnett from C9 Hotel Works. Here we are, another webinar. Today we're traveling to Cambodia.
We're traveling to Cambodia. Cambodia, a one-trick pony?
Maybe two ponies, maybe three ponies, maybe more ponies. Who knows? I mean, Cambodia is very interesting for us in terms of marketplace. 6.5 million visitors came in 2019, stabilized year. Last year, 2020, about 1.2 million. So, of course, it's been impacted by the pandemic. But also, you have to look traditionally, most of the people going to Cambodia were going to Angkor Wat. If we go back to 2019, about 2.2 million. So 1 in every 3 tourists are actually going to Angkor Wat as well. But there's a lot more to Cambodia than a single destination. And it's not a one-trick pony, David.
Exactly. Thank you, Bill. We're going to find out a lot more about that in just a moment. Let me just let you know that we've got a fantastic list of speakers. We're going to start off with Kun Sukun Chanpidao, who's the Managing Director of HMD Asia. We have Jesper Palmquist, the man with the data. He's Area Director, Asia Pacific of STR. We have Peter Meyer, who's the CEO of Logis Hospitality. We've got Mark Townsend, Chairman of CBRE Cambodia. We've got Willem Nehemiah, who is the founder and CEO of Yana Ventures. And we have Kim Hoon Feng, who's Delivering Age Communications' lady on the ground in Cambodia.
Well, David, I'm a little concerned. It's a bit wavy out today. See, you're rocking.
Am I rocking?
Are you rocking or rolling?
No, we're rocking today,
Okay,
Exactly. Okay, Bill, I'm going to... I'm
out of here?
You're out of here.
Okay, Kun Sukun coming on board. Welcome aboard.
Kun Sukun, welcome.
Thank you.
Really nice to have you on today.
Yep.
HMD Asia. Just let us tell us a little bit. HMD Asia is what? What do you do exactly?
Well, it's HMD is hospitality management and development. So we're doing hospitality development, hotels, mainly hotels and restaurants.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, here, we're obviously here to discuss Cambodia. You are sandwiched in between the giants of Thailand on one side, 40 million arrivals pre-COVID, and Vietnam, as good as 20 pre-COVID too. Where does Cambodia sit in that? What is the opportunity? How should Cambodia be positioned in between these two giants?
Good question. It's Cambodia is like a new kids on the block in this area, right? And before its position with culture, Angkor Wat, recently it's very much into. There's a lot of Chinese investors coming to Cambodia in recent years, like tsunami, and also developing a lot of casinos, especially Sinokville.
Okay.
So, and this is not open yet. They're just developing hundreds of casino.
Hundreds of licenses have been granted.
More than 100 or 200. Yeah.
No, it's fascinating. But how would you? What do you see as the opportunity to position Cambodia as a casino destination, or is there something else?
No, it's the casino is what's happening today.
Yeah, right.
But I think Cambodia, of course, Angkor Wat is still an attraction. But other than Angkor Wat, there's a lot of nature. Nice nature, beautiful and country, and a lot of rich culture there to be explored. Okay. So I thought, I think the nature thing is a good way to explore Cambodia.
That sounds great. So USP, nature, or is this something else?
Well,
key USP of
Cambodia, right? I think similar to Thailand.
Okay.
Before Thailand, I think one of the things that Thailand is so charming is the people. The people are so nice. The people love Phralang like you, right? They just love, and Cambodian is like that too. They love foreigners. They love to befriend. They love to serve, whether you are wealthy or not. But they just love to interact with people, and that's the charm of Cambodia, I think.
That sounds great. And what about on the ground at the moment? How are things? Vaccination rates. There's been a lot of stuff in the press about vaccination rates are really, really high in Cambodia. Quarantine. What is the situation at the moment?
Well, I think Cambodia has done a great job in vaccination. I read a lot of news about being vaccinated more than 90% of the population, and they're doing the third booster shot right now. as a nationwide. So I think they're very much vaccinated.
So why is the country being so cautious? So cautious about opening up? Thailand's going to be opening up on November 1.
Yeah,
next week.
I think Cambodia is, Thailand is well known for the medical hub, right? Everyone comes to Thailand to the quality of healthcare is so good in Thailand. So, but in Cambodia, the healthcare system is actually very lagging behind. So you don't want to, to get sick in Cambodia because the hospital system is very lagging. So I think the government is aware of that. So they really want to contain the COVID spread. So I think they're more cautious.
More cautious. Okay.
In Cambodia,
Can we expect things to open up over the coming months?
I hope so. Actually, last week, they just reduced the quarantine to 3 days for certain travelers. Yeah.
Okay, baby steps then.
Baby step.
Okay.
Big baby step.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about Shintamani. Shintamani is a very well-known brand, and it's your brand, I believe.
Yes.
And so just let us know about how you've managed during COVID in terms of operating. What have you done? Have you closed the hotels? How have you managed your staff? Have you kept some open? It'd just be really interesting to know.
Yeah, Shintamani is a homegrown brand, right, for Cambodia.
Awesome.
And of course, like everyone else during COVID, we have to close. We have to really suspend most of our staff. So we have a foundation called Shintamani Foundation. Before we go into villages to help the villagers in Siem Reap, but because of the pandemic and the closure of the hotel, so we turned the foundation to help support our staff. So we provide food for them for every month, so to compensate for their for no work.
Fantastic. I've got to ask you about Shintamani Wild. Shintamani Wild has been, a wild sensation, if you like, internationally. Yeah. But I'd be very surprised if pre COVID-19 there was ever a local domestic guest there. Very much an international out-facing property. I mean, have you kept that open?
Well, during the pandemic, we closed, but we opened only during if and when there's demand.
Okay.
And surprisingly, during this COVID time, we just realized there's a local market. The wealthy in Cambodia, because they cannot travel abroad.
Okay.
So, and also the choice of the top-end hotels are not that much in Cambodia. So we actually capture a lot of the high-end market in Cambodia. And the Cambodians
rediscovering their own.
The Cambodians did not realize that in Cambodia there's a international world-class resort in the jungle. So this is a surprising, pleasant surprise for everyone.
Fantastic. We're almost out of time, but I just want to ask you, in terms of new projects that you've got coming up. I mean, you've been very active in the Cambodian market. I mean, what do you have in the pipeline? You still developing?
We're still developing.
You put a hold on things?
Yeah. We are opening tribe in Phnom Penh in January this year, and then a new island resort called Jati in the middle of next year.
Okay, that's a new brand.
That's a new brand we're creating. It's a multi-generational brand,
nice.
And we're also developing about 8 restaurants in Phnom Penh.
Okay,
but that's also come out of from the crisis. Originally, our plan is to it's a mixed-use development tribe in Phnom Penh, and we're expecting to rent the space to outside restaurateur. But then because of COVID, one by one, they pull out of it. So, and because of that, we have to look for ways that we can develop restaurant there ourselves. But because of the pandemic, a lot of good restaurant, talented people, they have to close their venue in Siem Reap and other places. And with that crisis became our opportunity. So we partner to open the different restaurants and
fantastic.
An outlet there.
Fantastic.
So because of that, we could be a genius to do this, or we could be the laughingstock of the industry. Wait to be seen.
Okay. Well, good luck with that. Khun Sakun, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Fascinating stuff. Next up, we have Jesper Palmquist. Jesper, over to you.
Thank you, David, and hope you can hear me okay. Thanks for having me, and how great to talk about the wonderful country of Cambodia. If you look at this, compared to a year ago, airfares have fallen, but our hotel rates have not. So that's always an indication that things have started to progress and more flights are resuming. And if you look across the world, hotel rates, it's really only in Asia Pacific or in Asia, excluding mainland China, where we are not yet reaching close to the 2019 rate levels. As you can see, there were 70. Breaking that down further, you'll see that India and Japan and those markets are getting closer now, but it's in Southeast Asia where we're still behind. So that's in Southeast Asia. But why are hotel rates higher? Well, there's a few reasons. One of them is, of course, there is a demand crisis, right? It's not about normal yielding and compression or anything like that. We know also that it's about transient business more than groups, and groups carry a lower rate. So inherently, that means higher rates at the moment. There's also the pent-up demand. People are willing to pay when they travel now. And then we also know about hotels raising their rates because operational costs are higher. Wage bills, energy bills, that's impacting it. And if you look at revenue, one disclaimer or reminder is, of course, that we are living in inflation around the world, up to 5% in the first 3 quarters. So it depends on if you look at nominal or inflation-adjusted revenue as well, because it isn't really perhaps as good as it could be in terms of revenue in. Now, taking this rate into Cambodia, pre the pandemic, I should say, the difference between peak season and low season was as much as 50%. So you got as much as 50% more during the peak months. So that's a trend, I suppose, for an emerging market like that. But we look at indexing to 2019. Where are we right now in Cambodia? And there's 2 things here. One is that rates, the blue line, it's almost up there. It's pretty much up there by now. And it doesn't impact as much with the rates. And that's something we see in many markets. It hits lower and then it's up there. But it's also that occupancy, because it was only a couple of years ago when occupancies reached over 50% at a national level in Cambodia. So they're comparatively low. So to reach 50, obviously, is not as hard as reaching 80%. So the indexing makes that look quite favorable. We also know that pre-pandemic, we already saw seasonality shifts. Q2 and Q3, normally the lowest ones, have started to grow, whereas Q1 and Q4 had started going down. So that's a sign of slightly of the market shifting. And you can look at this heat map to see over 7-8 years just how much Q2 and Q3, the red boxes there, the lower occupancy. But then in 2018, the first year when we saw over 50% on an annual year, and then 19 is just more evenly spread out, which is a sign of how the market's evolving. We also know that pre-pandemic, weekend business was about 3% higher normally, 3 percentage points. And that didn't change. So that was before and during the pandemic, and also then potentially likely when we come out of this. I think you need to remember that Cambodia is experiencing a transformational change across all areas, like civil services, urbanization, education, economic growth, and in our sector as well, in tourism and travel. That means that some of these trends from, say, before 2015 will be less relevant because there's a lot of change happening in the country. Seasonality and source market is one thing, but rate, spend could and perhaps should be very different ahead. If we look at comparisons around Southeast Asia, the thing is that we're waiting a lot of these countries for something to happen. The coolest thing at the moment that everyone's talking about is, of course, which travel bubble is succeeding or not. And the latest one that has seen success is Langkawi. As you can see here in the last 5 or 6 weeks, even though not all hotels are open, which makes the occupancy look even higher, it is moving in the right direction, and so far it's a success. I think a couple of words on travel bubble. We know that Phuket is sitting there with 25-30% occupancies now, which is a lot more than the 2-3 they had before July 1st. We just talked about Langkawi, and then we have Bali, that 30-40%. Mainland Indonesia is starting to travel over to regional Bali, and it's increasing and then look to open as well. Cebu in Philippines is not yet, but they're doing great stuff, and now with limited restrictions will look to open as well. And then you have Phuket in the news, ready to start seeing vaccine travel lanes, etc. as well. So what is it about bubbles? Well, I think it's important to remember, not only do they usually provide travelers, guests, and revenue, they also get the destination ready. They increase morale, the employment gets going, and provide insights and learnings for how to get out of this appropriately. And I think people speak of dangers and poor ROI, and that's fair enough. But I would disagree in most cases, say that it is more important that it moves ahead and the learnings. And the great thing about Cambodia is one of the main factors we know that we need is already in place, and that's the vaccination. Thanks to the great work in Cambodia with Chinese help to get the vaccine rolled out, and often by location instead of by age group. 2 months ago, we're talking 60%, and now we're up at the 80%, world leading. So tremendous work there is helping this reboot. So my final point is around what is that we're looking right now. We know that transactions in hotel and real estate and commercial is starting to pick up, and that's a good sign. We know that resources and staffing will be a challenge moving forward for sure. We see that new supply is coming back again, right? So all these delays about the pipeline, 16% higher in pipeline compared to a year ago. And in Cambodia, we're talking about 10% increase in hotel supply, but 20% in rooms, because there are bigger hotels. Around 200 keys is more the average of the new supply coming on board compared to what exists today in the market. Groups is definitely the next big thing. People are looking to book groups and want to do them. I mentioned already how when the rates is growing, that will decelerate when groups come back with lower, and then you can of course inflation adjust even more. And I think both energy and staff costs and higher wages will put operational pressure. And then finally, as seasonality starts to kick back in, you'll start seeing the same patterns as before the pandemic, of course, and a chance to shift maybe source markets. But I do mention sustainability, because that's one of the cool things that through the pandemic, this is now back and getting, or I shouldn't say back, it's still there and getting the conversation, which is fantastic and very important for Cambodia as well. Final thought is that on budgeting, I think we hope that 2020 would see some recovery. And then 21 was the real recovery, at least in the second half of the year. And Delta changed that. Now 2022 has better signs for sure across the metrics and the fundamentals to be able to trade. More intra-ASEAN has potential even in H1 and definitely likely in the second half of the year. I'd like to thank you all for today. Thanks for listening to me, and have a great day. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jesper Palmquist. It's got to be out there floating in the ocean as a pineapple. You don't buy those pineapples at IKEA. Next up, I'm talking to Peter Meyer, who's the CEO of Lodges Hospitality. Peter's an experienced investment guy. And Peter, who knew the pandemic was going to take this long?
I mean, I think none of us could have imagined this when all this started. And we thought, a disease like this doesn't run on a calendar basis. And I think a lot of us thought by the end of last year that we'd be writing ourselves out of it. And regrettably, it's the gift that keeps giving.
Yeah, we're still waiting for the Chinese to come back. So I think that story is going to continue on and on for a while. But you've been an investor now in Cambodia for a while. So kind of taking the seat of an investor, what's been your experience, coming internationally and investing into the Cambodian market?
Well, one of the things that, it struck me and us, having spent some time working in other developing and emerging markets, is frankly, it's been quite easy to do business in some of the places that I spent some time developing and operating hotels, and have proven to be much more difficult. And so Cambodia has been quite positive from that standpoint, and been refreshing, quite frankly, for again, a developing market. Clearly, a big chunk of the time that we've owned these assets, we've been in the midst of this dreadful pandemic. So it's hard to gauge, ongoing operations, because it's been anything but normal. And in fact, just as we completed the renovations of the two assets, because we invested considerable capital in bringing them back to their former splendor and glory, this thing struck. So it certainly hasn't been a typical environment, but I will say that from the standpoint of getting permits, doing works, and then during COVID, working with the unions here, all of it has been much easier than one might have imagined. So that's been a pleasant surprise.
You don't often hear that with unions. Yeah. As an institutional investor, how are you adjusting your return expectations? Nobody really understands where the market's going and when it's going to be recovered and everything else. But how are you kind of seeing that trajectory going, or adjusting expectations for your investors as well?
Well, I think the way we look at it, we still have targeted returns, and we're not relenting from those. I think what this has done is this has pushed back the exit horizon. So from a return perspective, we recognize that it's going to take some time for performance to catch up even to 2019, but that we're still driving, and ultimately we can be patient money. So we don't have to exit necessarily at a certain point. So we're going to try to get our value and our returns. It's obviously now going to take much longer to get into a liquidity event.
Right. You've been dealing with hotel operators certainly during this pandemic as well. Has that relationship changed dramatically, or do you find it still to be the same situation with operators and owners, or are they helping you more? What's the situation on the ground?
I mean, it's a good question, and I'm not here to necessarily disparage operators. At the end of the day, operators and owners have their own sets of interests. We like to think that operators will think like owners, but that isn't always the case, and often and sometimes they're trying to protect their interests. I would say that the relationship with our operators has been generally constructive, but not always, honestly, not to provide you with an ambiguous answer. And we've had to push them. Again, they have certain interests and so forth and so on, and don't want to be terminated and all of this. But overall, it's been mixed, frankly. Yeah.
I think in terms of looking at, Cambodia is not a huge country. Again, 2019, about 6.5 million travelers to the country. Where do you see the bright spots in the future if you're looking at investment in Cambodia? Which sectors are you looking at? Which tiers are you seeing? Where are you seeing some, hope out there in terms of a great return?
Well, listen, we already own, nearly 300 keys. And again, this isn't meant to pitch ourselves of what I think are two iconic special assets. And after the capital investment in it, we've really taken them up to snuff and are in Condé Nast's top 30 for Asia. So relative to what we're doing, we think that ultimately when the travel market returns, we'll be able to take advantage of that, because the travelers that come to our hotels, let's say in the case of Phnom Penh, the Raffles Royal there would be the high-end business travelers. So, eventually that business travel is going to come back, and we are an address of choice given that we're distinctive. Right. Relative to the tourist market, I think there is an enormous amount of pent-up demand, and there are a lot of people that are just going to want to get on the road. And again, our Siem Reap asset, we're distinctive and special. So anyone who's coming to Cambodia and coming to Siem Reap and wants to see the Angkor Wat and all the other things to see there are going to want to stay fast and what the history was. So we're distinctive that way. So
Sure.
We think that our assets are specialized, and we'll be able to cut through the market clutter. And when travel does return, we think we're in a very good position to penetrate these distinctive flows of business.
Maybe one final question before, I know you're busy, you got to take off as well. Oh. Okay. Okay. We heard, whatever. On the last question, your audio cut out from the Wi-Fi, so I'm going to come back and we're going to restart on thoughts on future investment in the country. Yeah. So I'm going to come back. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, make it a little shorter too. Okay. I guess, Peter, looking at future investments, again, you've got some assets existing, but which tiers are you looking at, based on your experience? Where are there going to be bright spots for investment back into Cambodia over the next few years?
Well, listen, I think, again, just looking at the assets that we have, I think whether it's our Phnom Penh property or Siem Reap, we offer distinctive assets. Phnom Penh for high-end business travelers who want a central location. And in the case of Siem Reap, a one-of-a-kind asset in a heritage site for bucket list travelers coming in. And there's a lot of pent-up business. So we think for those two properties, we're extremely well positioned. In terms of new investment, we will be selective on what we do. We are, this is that if there's any sort of bottom of a cycle, this is the personification of it. And so let's hope it is opportunity in the region. But clearly, if we see value in Cambodia to top up what we already have, we have, substantial interest there, we would certainly look at it.
Okay,
I can't give you a cookie cutter answer to what it would be. I think at the end of the day, it's something that we think we can buy that's a good asset at a discount to replacement cost, which we think has potential to rebound.
Buy low, sell high, as they say. Maybe just quickly, I've got one more question for you. What have you learned? Every time you go to a new market, there's learnings from it. As an investor or leading investor, what's your key learnings from the Cambodia market? Things you've done right, things you've done wrong, anecdotal things.
It's a little tricky to my opening advice, because the time that we've owned this, a lot of it has been during the pandemic, so it's been anything but business as usual. And the Siem Reap property was effectively closed for capital improvement. So we've never really had a chance to get our stride there. I'm not trying to, punt, sure. But it's in a way we're just getting started, because this thing hit as we were finishing these two capital improvement programs. As I mentioned earlier, I have been pleasantly surprised at how relatively easy it has been to do business in a market like this. A lot less red tape in getting things done. And we've found working with the unions and everything else to be quite productive. So I'm optimistic about what we can do with these two assets once the market rebounds.
I think some really good thoughts there for investors in Cambodia. Peter Meyer, Lodges Hospitality, thank you very much today for those insights, and good luck in 2022 going forward and coming out of the pandemic.
We appreciate that, Bill, and thank you for inviting me to this.
Thanks, Peter.
Bye now.
Okay, thanks so much, Peter Meyer. And now I've got Mark Townsend. Mark Townsend is a guru, certainly, of real estate Cambodia, all things. He's the chairman of CBRE Cambodia. Hi, Mark. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good, Bill.
So, Mark, I know you like talking pretty bluntly. From our talks before, market's up, market's down again. When you're looking at the picture for 2022, what's hot right now? Are you feeling anything hot, aside from your room?
It is a bit hot here, yeah. Do you know I'm not? I'm worried that the leaders of ASEAN won't agree any meaningful way out of COVID for us to travel. I'm worried that the Chinese tourists that Cambodia counted on for the last 3 years may find it very difficult to get down there. I worry that the hoteliers will give up. I worry that the tycoons will start to build even more hotels and probably the wrong thing in the wrong place at the wrong time at the wrong price point. And there's a lot of things around Asia that I think are looking better than Cambodia. So although we've stumbled our way through the last 2 years at CBRE, I'm not looking good at the hospitality sector, or I'm not feeling the love there. I'm feeling it in logistics. I'm feeling it in other sectors, but I'm not really feeling it in the hospitality sector, which is disappointing because so much hangs on hospitality in the local market. And I think one's got to be realistic. I wouldn't want to be owning many hotel assets in Cambodia at the moment. I think that when Marriott came 2 years ago and opened their courtyard, I think that they struck a home run. Unless you're going to build something like that, I think I would be very, very careful in Cambodia.
Okay, let's swing off hospitality for a while. What's up and coming? You spoke about logistics and also from real estate. Where is there some bright spots in terms of investment, other sectors?
Well, I think there's, it's a young, urbanizing population. Not every son or daughter wants to plant rice anymore. There's a lot of migration into the town. So social housing, medium, low-income housing. We've had a good year in selling townhouses, apartments. We just sold a service department building for a Japanese group just a few weeks ago. And I think anything local, anything domestic, anything that requires foreigners to come in and make a decision, it's been very, very tough. Anything that's being driven by FDI, very tough. Anything local, you fill your boots.
Everything local. we often talk about the young population, the population of Cambodia under 25, but how, what's affordable for them? How deep is that economy's sector really? Yeah.
Well, I had a good go at trying to get the company interested in, and some of our investors in student accommodation. And I was thinking, is it $300-400 a month? I was told it's about 150. So it's about a quarter of what Vietnam is. A good rent for an apartment would be anywhere between $600 and $1,200 a month. That's a very good rent. Affordable. We were selling apartments 2 years ago at $3,000 a square meter. That was higher than Ho Chi Minh at the time. Now, obviously, Ho Chi Minh's doubled, and probably Phnom Penh has come off by 15 to 25%. I think it was already overpriced 2 years ago, and obviously now very, very few people are buying off the plan residential. It's a more local market where people prefer to buy a site and build a house on it. So again, very similar dynamics to what Vietnam was 15, 20 years ago. And I think it'll follow a similar trajectory, but it was overpriced.
It took a long time for Vietnam, certainly, these cycles. But, what about the China impact as well? When do you think the Chinese investors will be back? And do you think we're going to have the sheer velocity, you've seen in the past? Or do we think it's going to be much more muted?
I think with what's going on with Evergrande, obviously, and what's going on with the leadership, common prosperity, I think it will be a while before we see what we saw in terms of real estate investment. And obviously for tourism and hospitality, which we can talk about a bit more, where Thailand, Vietnam, and Cambodia was so reliant on Cambodia's Chinese tourists, it's going to be a while. Obviously, they've got their own issues with COVID. They're looking at it as zero tolerance. But they were the mainland Chinese money was everywhere. It wasn't just Sihanoukville, Kampong, Battambang. It was everywhere, in every town, in every sector, particularly residential. The project sizes were 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 units at a time, and just too much too soon. In a way, if it does come back, I hope it comes back in a different form.
I think something we're seeing here in Thailand is the pandemic influence on real estate. We're seeing single family homes go up. We're seeing Thais buy homes in Phuket. We're seeing perhaps multi-generational living coming back to the family compound. How do you think real estate's going to change in Cambodia?
Well, I think that hasn't gone away. It's still, just going back to my student accommodation idea. I mean, the reason I'm going to invest in it is because families are still so tight. They want their kids and their grandparents all under one roof. And I don't think that's changed. It's reinforced it. And things that's been happening in Ho Chi Minh or Bangkok for the last 10 years hasn't probably happened yet in Phnom Penh. I'm not being rude about that. It's just the way things are, and families are much, much tighter. We've just had some big bank holidays in Cambodia. We've got another one this weekend. And these are times when the family gets in the car and drives down to the beach, even for a day. And that's not going to change in a hurry. So I think three generations living together will continue. And you're right. The housing box bubble will have to accommodate that. And that's why, probably building all those apartments are going to be difficult when actually what people want is really townhouses or row houses or shop houses.
Okay, Mark Townsend, Chairman of CBRE Cambodia, thank you so much. I'm coming from Thailand. It actually looks like I'm going to be swimming to Cambodia right now until I can get back in. But all the best for 2022, and thank you for your insights today. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, many thanks.
Thank you, Mark, for the session earlier, and it was very insightful and nice to know what's happening on the ground there. Next speaker up, we've got Willem Niemeyer from Yana Ventures, who is the CEO and also founder. Welcome to the webinar, Willem.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. So my first question up for you. So can you tell us a little bit about Yana Ventures? Because Yana talks a lot about experiential travel, particularly with sustainability in mind. So how do you grow a sustainable tourism business in Cambodia?
Well, I suppose you grow it in Cambodia as you do in any other destination. I think, and any other business, you first have to have a good idea, as with any other business, and you need to have a good execution. But I think what sets it apart for sustainability is that you not only have an idea to make money, but you have an idea to also at least protect the environment, if possible, actively help to in conservation of the environment, and help to do something that improves the community in which you operate. So I think that sets a sustainable business apart from, say, normal business.
Right, fantastic. Yeah, with the development that we're experiencing now in Cambodia, as you can see, sustainability could empower businesses, particularly with entrepreneurs. So how do you foresee the freedom to innovate, and also while trying to provide background in leadership and resources, how do you see them thrive in this area, again, with sustainability in mind?
Yeah, well, I think Cambodia is in a fantastic position for entrepreneurs who want to do something in sustainable or entrepreneurship, whatever that may be. But to nail it down on tourism sector, Cambodia is really interesting because the places where there is tourism development is very little. There's of course Phnom Penh, and there's obviously Siem Reap, and there's a little bit going on at coastal areas. But by and large, large swaths of the country are still open. So there's a lot of opportunity for entrepreneurs to start a business in travel and to contribute. And I think if you build a business in tourism outside of the main hubs, you're already having one big step in the direction of sustainability, because you help to prevent over-tourism.
Right. So you've got a few brands that you work with and also projects in Cambodia. So I understand that you believe that brands with a higher purpose would actually be sustainable and probably has a longer lifespan than most organizations. So tell me a little bit about Cardamom Tented Camp in Cambodia, which, by the way, big congratulations that Green Destinations has announced that Cardamom Tented Camp has been, Eco Lodge in Cambodia has been named one of the 2021 top 100 destination sustainability stories in the world. So, yeah, so again, thriving on brands with sustainability and with a higher purpose. So how does this stand out from other businesses?
I think it's actually easier to understand if you start a business, and you start a business, if you break it down, if you start a business, you make it just only about money, in particular in tourism, but I would say it's in other businesses as equal important. It is difficult to keep things going because it's difficult to keep being motivated by economics, by money for most people, and especially for staff. So if you start by your business by having a higher purpose in your business, and that can be anything, but for us it's sustainability, and it's sustainability either in helping the local community or doing good work in the form of conservation. It helps to motivate staff, and not only that, but it helps to rally your clients around your higher purpose as well. So it helps in marketing. In the case of Cardamom Tented Camp, it's a great example, because what we are doing there is we help support Wildlife Alliance in their conservation efforts to keep 18,000 hectares of lowland rainforest standing. So clients will understand and they will rally around it, and therefore I suppose that we are punch above our weight when it comes to raking in the awards and the accolades.
Thank you very much. I've got one last question for you. So you touched upon community and also developing ecotourism villages. are you able to give me some examples in Cambodia that you've done recently, particularly to raise awareness on protection of the cultural heritage, as well as, if you're able to share some insights on how that could contribute to a successful business operation?
Yeah, and unfortunately, we are not the only ones. There are quite a number of other businesses that follow the same path. So we are definitely not the only one, which is good, because otherwise it would be too narrow for the business to thrive and for sustainability to thrive. But as an example, I can bring up Bante Smar, where we worked together with the local community. They had a community-based travel project going on, but they only had very simple accommodations. And what we did, we brought in luxury tents that could be removed, and we basically taught the community on how to do this and how to cater for more luxury clients, and therefore also get a higher revenue into the community. And delivering very happy clients. So that project lasted about 2 years or so, and then we were able to hand it over to the community, and it's still running. So these type of things are one way to do it, but you don't have to do it on just only local community or very remote places. This can be done also in Siem Reap or Phnom Penh in various different guises as well. So it doesn't have to be remote. As we do it, and it can definitely, or actually it should definitely be for profit in order to be sustainable.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much, William, and great insights as well. You know, it's really nice to see how we can combine people, planet, and also profit into organizations and have a rewarding success. Thank you again for being with us today.
Yeah, great to get the opportunity. Thank you for that.
So next up we have David, who will introduce our next speaker, Kim. Thank you.
Thanks, Sumi. Kim Wonpeng, how are you today?
Hi, David. Thank you. I'm doing very well. Thank you.
Excellent. Kim is the country manager, Cambodia, for delivering Asia communications. Kim, I just wanted to get some insights from you actually on the ground in Phnom Penh. I mean, what is the situation like so far? Are people in restaurants and cafes? Is the market coming back?
Yes, David, in Cambodia now, because the government has recently issued the announcement that we can gather up to 50 people, and also the number of vaccination has been done quite well. So they opened the restaurant. So yeah, the restaurant are coming back to operate one by one. So yes, we are quite busy now in Phnom Penh.
Okay, that's great. That's great. I'm sure people are just so delighted to be in the cafes and restaurants again, enjoying normal life. And how about hotels during this period? How have what have hotels done to survive? I know in some of the resort areas, Siem Reap, for example, a lot of the hotels would have closed. But in the city like Phnom Penh, maybe some of them have stayed open. And what have they done to for business?
Yes, so like you mentioned, in Siem Reap, the hotel depend pretty much on the tourists, so they are pretty affected. But Phnom Penh, because we have a lot of corporate, they still keep open, especially on F&B. So how they do is that they try to do some promotion on their website, on their social media page, so that they can attract people to dine in or to take away from the restaurant.
Okay, that's great. And as if the F&B sector is the only sector that's really creating income for hotels, I'm sure F&B is becoming very competitive. There's a lot of competitive promotions, and also a lot of restaurants needing to be completely unique with their offering. How would you say during this period that consumers have changed? Has there been a change in consumer behavior in Phnom Penh, for example?
Yes, so actually people before they like to dine in, right? But now because of this pandemic, they learn to adopt. So they do a lot of food ordering from the applications, from the hotel itself, from the restaurant itself, through the app. So yeah, food delivery is quite booming.
Okay, food delivery, a booming business, like it is also in Thailand. And what about the international market coming back? I understand that vaccination rates are very high, and there's a third booster coming along. There's maybe 90% vaccination rates. What are hotels doing to prepare for the return of the international market? I'm sure it's only just a few months away.
Yes, so they are now preparing themselves. They are doing all this maintenance. So they're checking their rooms, their water, their aircon to make sure that everything is up on operation to welcome the tourists back.
And just to wrap up, please, Kim, how do you feel that Cambodia can be repositioned, or what are the new destinations in the market that are coming up?
Okay, so as everybody knows that Cambodia is very known for its Angkor Wat and also the coastal area like Kampot, Kap and Sihanoukville, but we also have a very beautiful mountain area like Mandalkiri. So Mandalkiri is gonna be our new destination that we can attract more tourists, both local and internationals.
And what can you do in that destination?
The hotel industry are developing. We have a lot of new nice resort coming up and also restaurant. And then they have already natural tourist attractions like the waterfalls, like the big lake.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. That's very different from the temples of Angkor Wat or the casinos in Sihanoukville. That's really, really fantastic to have a more of a nature-based tourism opportunity. Thank you, Kim. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Bye now. Okay, well, that's almost a wrap. Bill Barnett, shall we see how we'll wrap things up today? It's been an interesting session.
Cambodia, great session. I mean, the one thing about Cambodia is the story is yet to be written. It's one of Asia's great tourism stories, because we've seen Thailand, we've seen Vietnam, but for Cambodia, there's a lot left to be seen, and it's going to be an amazing story. So I think, again, today, coming out of the pandemic, it's something yet to be written. So a great story for me. What's next for C9 and Delivering Asia Communications?
Okay, on November 9.
We're on that ship again. We're rolling back and forth.
On November 9, it's sports tourism. So we're back in Thailand. Sports tourism.
Sports tourism in Thailand? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I could go out and do some sports right now. So I think I'll jog off, David. And we'll see you guys in a few weeks. And don't forget, tune into our YouTube channel. And for Delivering Asia Communications and C9 Hotel Works, see you next time.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Bill.
Hi, my name's Ashton. I'm a creative director here at Creative Concept AV, and I'd like to show you around our digital studio. So behind me, we've got a 4K LED wall. We've got studio lights up the top here, some ambient light columns, confidence monitor on the bottom, and a 4K camera. If you come with me this way, I'll show you what's actually behind the studio. So over here, we've got Toto manning the actual stream that goes out to the internet. We've got Andrew on our video switcher, and we have Piwat on our 16-channel digital mixer to handle all the microphone and sound inputs. This is the type of studio that we use for our online events, and we actually set it up in a single day here at Sai Laguna Phuket. It's a 5-star beach resort, so at the end of the day, you could walk out the door and jump straight into a swimming pool if you wanted to. We have a sister studio in the Grand Hyatt Bali, which is a green screen studio. And for events that we've done, we've actually built studios around the region to be able to support the kind of online events that we do. That's just a little bit of insight of what we do. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, Creative Concept AV, give us a call and maybe we'll do your next event. Thanks very much.